everyone, how are you? I hope you're doing great and that you're having a great summer, if it is summer in the place where you live, because today I'm talking about somewhere where it is not summer at the moment. Anyway, today I'd like to tell you, as you will have seen from the title of this video, how to save money when traveling to Australia. Let's dive right in. If I look this way, I'm sorry, I've got my laptop here for notes. I will just jump right in because I don't like long intros when I'm looking at other YouTubers' videos. First of all, flights. Not even a year ago, I went to Australia by myself for 3 weeks and it was one of the best journeys ever. I'm going to do another video about traveling to Australia by myself, but in this video I'd like to focus on giving you tips on how to save money. So flights. Last year I got to book flights during the cheapest month, or one of the cheapest months anyway, to go to Australia. So I had a look and did some research, and the cheapest months are May, August and September. So when it's low season in Australia basically, so not when it's summer. I booked using Skyscanner. I always use that website when booking for flights. I've done a lot of research. I looked into different airlines, Emirates, Qatar, basically these two, because I think they are the best ones. I'm not gonna lie, maybe I could have saved more with other airlines. I think friend recommended Air China, but it didn't change that much. And being the longest flight I've ever done in my life, I wanted to have a good experience, and I had already traveled with Emirates, so I would have loved to fly with them, but I ended up flying with Qatar, and it was the first time I flew with Qatar, and I had a great experience. It wasn't as luxury as Emirates, I find. Like, I don't know, I think it's maybe one step lower. I recommend buying around 45 to 60 days before your departure and booking flights during the week and in the morning if possible, and avoid booking flights at the weekend and in the evening, because websites know that that's when people are most likely to book flights, because if you have a 9 to 5 job, that's when you would be free to look. So yeah, if you can, just do it during the week and middle of the week. I think the best days are Tuesdays and Wednesdays, if I'm not mistaken. And you can also use a VPN if you have one, like NordVPN, Surfshark, or whatever VPN you have. And you can set it to a location somewhere where the income is not very high. Don't set it to Norway or Iceland, let's say. I read that that can help as well. I'm not sure if all of this works, but if it helps a bit, even £50, why not? Better than nothing, right? If you do book for September, as I did last year, obviously bear in mind that's going to be the beginning of spring in Australia, but I had the best time. Some of you might have already seen my videos from Australia, but if you haven't, I stayed in Melbourne 8 or 9 days. I was supposed to stay only 7, but then I stayed 2 days longer because I fell in love with Melbourne. And then I stayed 5 days in Byron Bay and the last 7 in Sydney. And when I got to Melbourne, the temperature was, let's say, a nice spring or maybe a nice summer in Scotland. So yeah, that was great. You could still wear lighter clothes, but you definitely had to bring a jacket, maybe a fake leather jacket. It never rained, I think. No, it did, but just one day, 1 or 2 days. So it's still really enjoyable as time of year to go. Then Byron Bay was great. I didn't swim. I got into the sea. I didn't really swim because, again, if you've seen my videos, you'll know that I've got a phobia of white sharks, an obsession. But I did get into the water and I did get to sunbathe, and I was actually really glad it wasn't the middle of summer. To me, the temperature was perfect, maybe 25 degrees, so I would definitely recommend going to Australia in September. Obviously, if you go in May or August, I don't think that's going to be great. I mean, it will be slightly cooler, So if you still want to have the feel of a warm holiday, maybe do go in September. Then the second way to save money is using public transport, of course. I never used taxis or Ubers except for maybe 4 times. I mostly used shuttle buses, trains, trams, ferries since the day I landed. I landed at, I think it was 1 a.m. in Melbourne, and I used the airport bus, which was great. It saves you a lot of money compared to using taxis and Ubers, and it brings you straight to the city center. My hotel was really close to Southern Cross station. I had planned that on purpose so that I would only have to walk maybe 4 minutes from when I arrived with the airport bus to the hotel, even if it was 2 a.m. Also in Melbourne, you've got the free tram zone, so that's also great. Quite a fantastic thing to have a city where the trams are free. I had never heard of that before. And of course, I walked a lot, like 10 to 13 kilometers a day, so that obviously saves you money as well. Except the first day I got an Uber because my shoes were starting to hurt my feet, so that was kind of an emergency. And also another time I was stranded at a lighthouse with a friend I met in Byron Bay, and it was dark, and so we got an emergency Uber as well. Instead of driving through the forest with the snakes and all that. But this is another story. I'm still here to tell you, so it all went well. The prices for Ubers are really good, I find, in Australia. I didn't feel the difference with Scotland, basically. You can check the journeys you've got to do in advance on iPhone Maps, Google Maps. My favorite is iPhone Maps. I find it super clear, but I know that sometimes it's better to use Google Maps because of traffic updates. It's better in that way. You can go on your iPhone Maps or Google Maps and set where you're starting from, where you've got to go, and you've got all the options: walking, car, public transport. You can also select what kind of means of transport you want to get, so you can take or not take buses, trains, ferries, etc. That's a fantastic way to plan your journeys. Then it's related to the previous one, so it's walking. If you can walk instead of getting Ubers, bring of course comfortable shoes, also because walking is a great way to explore neighborhoods. Like in Melbourne, I explored so many neighborhoods, residential areas that I would have not seen had I not walked. Then food. So I stayed in Australia for 3 weeks. So of course you will have to think about breakfast, lunch and dinner every single day. That has a big influence on your budget. I so often got food from supermarkets and had it either at the hotel, or I bought ingredients and then I cooked in the hostels. Also, as the weather was so great, I could eat in beautiful places as well, parks, on the beach. It's great. You could always find a bench where you could sit and have your meal. In Byron Bay especially, there was an Aldi or a Lidl. I'm not really sure now. I think it was an Aldi. So it's basically the cheapest supermarket you can find, because then you have Super Woolies, Woolworths or Coles, but Aldi was the cheapest and it was the closest to my hostel, so that was ideal. I could buy fruit, cheese and bread also to make yourself breakfast at the hostel. So definitely I recommend obviously not going out for every single breakfast, lunch and dinner, because that changes massively how much you're going to spend. It's probably one of the main things where you can save. Also kind of related to this is bring a water bottle, because thankfully in Australia there's water fountains everywhere, so it would be really silly to buy a plastic water bottle every time. Just bring your own. You will be able to fill it up almost everywhere. Well, I don't want to speak too broadly. It depends which part of Australia you're going to. But if you do go to Melbourne, Sydney, and the more touristy places, I can basically assure you, you will find somewhere to fill it up. And of course, it saves a lot of plastic waste as well. Then accommodation. This, as well as flights and food, is obviously the main thing that will save you money. So I stayed 20 nights in total in Australia, and I spent 10 days in hotels and 10 days in hostels. I stayed in an Ibis, it was called Ibis Kingsgate Hotel in Melbourne. Then I stayed in YHA hostel in Byron Bay called YHA Cape Byron. So that's the Australian Youth Hostel Association, and it was just fantastic. I spent so little. Now I can't remember exactly how much I spent in that hostel, and it was in such a wonderful location. While in Sydney, I stayed 2 nights in a hotel because basically I booked the first nights in Melbourne and the last nights in Sydney, so I had to arrange for a few nights that were left out. And so I stayed in a hotel which was not super expensive, but definitely more expensive than the Melbourne one. I found Sydney to be more expensive than Melbourne accommodation wise. And also the hostel, the last hostel in which I stayed for the last 5 nights, I think it was YHA Sydney Harbour, and that was way more expensive than the hostel in Byron Bay. One night in that Sydney hostel cost almost as much as one night in a double bedroom in Melbourne, but also it was totally worth it, and it was a 4-bed female dormitory with an ensuite, so it was totally worth it. I would definitely spend that money again. I would recommend booking early with free cancellation because you never know if your itinerary is going to change. And I recommend using Booking. I always use Booking. I love it because the more you use it, the more discounts you're going to get. Now I'm at the highest level of rewards, level 3, I think. And that saved me really good money as well. And also I recommend using your phone, your mobile phone, when booking accommodations on the app because it's cheaper. The prices when you're booking from your phone are lower than when you're booking through your laptop, so that makes you save even more. Also, if you find a really great hostel, I would recommend booking it immediately because if there's free cancellation, even better. If there's not, hostels are generally quite cheap, so you've always got a plan B, you know, a safe haven to go to. Also, booking in advance lets you find better rooms in hostels. So instead of staying in a mixed 12-bed dormitory with an outdoor toilet, not outdoor toilet, I mean not an ensuite, you could find, if you're a woman, for instance, a 4-bed dormitory with an ensuite. And I don't know about you, but I always prefer staying in a female-only bedroom in hostels, just for safety. Then money. I would so recommend having a digital bank like Revolut because I don't know if they're the best, but definitely cheaper rates and fees than if you're using your traditional bank. Like instead of using my Bank of Scotland cards, I used Revolut. So I would move money from my other bank accounts to Revolut, and then I would always use that. And then switching to data, your smartphone data, I would download Saily. I used it for the first time on that journey, and again, it's an app that you can download on your phone. You can basically purchase data through that app, and you can pick the location where you are, how long you're going to stay, how much data you want, and you don't have to buy a physical Australian SIM card, which is great because that would be a headache. I would hate to have to do that. And this is so convenient. It's your phone, nothing changes. You just download the app and buy as much data as you like. Finally, this might sound obvious, but bring everything that you might need. Like double check, triple check, quadruple check your suitcase and make sure that you brought everything you needed. Adapters, chargers, clothes, shoes, flip-flops, bikinis, hats, towels. Make sure that you brought everything that you might need. Sunglasses, I don't know, a water bottle, super important. Remember your water bottle, so you don't need to buy stuff when you're there, because it might sound obvious, but it's really easy to forget something and then you're there and you've got to waste money on things that are not really super necessary. So these were my tips on how to save money when traveling to Australia. I know that some of these things require some sacrifice, of course. We would all love to stay in a 5-star hotel instead of a hostel, but I think especially if you're youngish, you can enjoy it so much, even for the people that you meet. I met a lovely friend in Byron Bay. Hi Mitzi, if you're watching this video from Chile. I think you've got the best moments when you're in hostels, sometimes the best moments of your journey. I especially love like cooking together in the common kitchen, sharing a meal in the common dining room. It's a great way to travel while you can, and it makes you also less spoiled. Like, it makes you realize how lucky you are, how spoiled you are when you're not traveling in a hostel. It makes you appreciate that privacy of when you're staying in a hotel. But yeah, I found Australia a fantastic place to go, even if you don't have a huge budget. So I hope you have a great trip if you're planning one. I would go back in a heartbeat. It's such a shame that it's so far away, and also the jet lag, but I will speak about this and about traveling there by myself in another video. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found this video useful. I might make another one about how to save money when traveling in general. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!